Welcome back. Today is August the 23rd, 2021. Our guest speaker tonight is Christopher Carter.
I'm glad to be here. I am. All right, I'll put mine there.
Amen.
About fake it till you make it. Let's start there tonight. That's a good place to start. I talked with someone today after a morning meeting over at the Well of Nashville, and I'll just speak in generalities, so I'm not like giving anything away. But I was talking to someone who said, when you're here and we're doing all this stuff in the Spirit in the heavenly places, this person said essentially, like, I don't think I'm doing anything. I'm just kind of pretending to be there. I'm like pretending to be with Jesus by this waterfall. And she was like, I can see it, but I'm just like pretending that that's what we're doing. And I have this way of like encouraging that, being like, that's a good job. You should keep doing that. And I was just like, I'm going to give you permission for the next 6 months to pretend that you're with Jesus all the time. I'm just going to give you a giant permission slip. Just pretend you're doing it. Pretend you're in the garden with him. Pretend you're in the cosmos with the Lord. Pretend you're in the throne room talking to the Lord about whatever. Just pretend. And do that for 6 months. And in 6 months, I'll check back in with you. And you tell me how you're doing. And it led to a really, just quick conversation for, there's some of you here that I have not met before. There's some back row people back there. Pretending like they're Baptists, back row Baptists back there. I know some of you, it's like my first time meeting, and some of you it's just once or twice that we've met, or I met you this weekend, and and some of you were guilted into being here. I think that's always really positive. So as a way just to enter in gingerly at the beginning before we dive in later, the gingerly part here is that it's a good encouragement to know that the Holy Spirit is inside of you and not outside of you. And I think that that's an important part of understanding the Holy Spirit. That's an indwelling moment for humanity. And if the Holy Spirit, or since the Holy Spirit is on the inside, then something like the eyes of your heart, which is a function of the Holy Spirit, the origin of it is always going to feel like it's inside you. You will always feel like the beginner of those experiences. So to wait for like a heaven experience to hit you from outside after you've prayed for 3 hours and worshiped for another 2 in the middle of a revival meeting, it might. I think God would honor it, but there's just no sense in it. There's no sense in waiting for it. It's not something that takes all of that. You've got the Holy Spirit on the inside. Therefore, what John did in the book of Revelation when he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day was not something that he had to wait for God to do. Now, the proof in that, again, for folks that I'm just meeting for the first time so that you kind of get an idea of what I do, the proof for that, how do we know that John wasn't like, well, this is special. I'm in the Spirit on the Lord's day. Hallelujah. I should write this stuff down. How do we know that's not where he's at? And the trick is, what do these gospel and New Testament writers explain to us, and what do they not explain to us? What they not explain is just as important as what they take the time to explain. For instance, if I'm writing a book, as I'm often find myself in the process of doing because I'm a glutton for punishment, if I'm writing a book and I'm telling a story and I'm describing what I'm wearing, and I said, on that Sunday at Melchizedek Christian Church, I wore blue jeans. I do not then have to go into an explanation of what blue jeans are, because I'm pretty sure everyone across the world already knows. That's common knowledge. When John, writing Revelation, says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and does not bother to tell us what he means, that was not the special part. If that were the special part, he would have gone on to say, and this is what that was. And no New Testament writer ever takes the time to tell us what being in the Spirit actually means or how to do it. And if that makes you want to strangle them, you're not alone. They really missed it on that one. I mean, that was a giant whiff. I mean, like when we see them, we're going to be like, couldn't you just thrown us a bone on that one? Like, did you ever foresee that that was going to be lost to Christendom for a pretty good chunk of time? And then around, I don't know, 1800 years later, after that thread of the story was lost, there was a chance we were going to pick it back up and then feel like we were doing it from scratch because you never bothered to tell us what that meant to be in the Spirit. And they would be like, well, everyone knew. That's why we never bothered to explain it. So for John to be in the Spirit on the Lord's day is normal. What happened when he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, he was instructed to write. And that was the abnormal part. So it was just a good day in the heavens as far as I'm really going to give you a download like 22 chapters worth. So just get the pen and let's get ready to do this. You got a lot of writing to do today. And he was like, man, yesterday we were just hanging. I was just pretending to be by the waterfall with you, Lord. You know, and he's like, I know, but today you're going to pretend to be up here and I'm going to show you what's going to happen after this. And this you're going to write down and send to everybody. But the idea of being there was the normal part. Now, not to kind of go over, like my origin story again with all of this, but this is what I do. Like I'm always a one-trick pony. There's only like 2 or 3 subjects that I have any business even talking about. And it really is all an effect of being in the heavens for the last 11 years, doing what John did in the book of Revelation. And I get the really cool job of telling people all over the world how easy it is for them to do it. That's a really fun job to have. And I'm not alone in that. If you ever wanted to know, and I'm throwing this out there to Melchizedek Christian Church, I think take this on, okay? If you ever wanted to know how to rope people in to experiencing the heavens, and full cowboy terminology here. Like imagine you're on the horse and the calf just came out of the thing and you're going to rope it, hog tie it, do the whole thing. That's sometimes how you have to chase people down. But to rope them in to experiencing the heavens, it's really, really easy. Just strike up a conversation about all the way that God speaks to people. And just kind of throw it out there and be like, hey, don't you just love all the different ways God talks? He kind of talks through the scriptures and maybe even through a dream or a vision or something. And then you just kind of go through all of that. And then out of nowhere, just go, but my favorite is just when I go meet with Jesus face to face in the garden. And they'll be like, wait, run the last one by me again? Yeah, my favorite way to talk to God, my favorite way that God speaks is when I just am meeting with God face to face in Eden. And then they go, okay, how are you, what are you making this up? And you go, yeah, kind of. But then you can just sort of tell them. That's the moment you go, yeah, it's just that's what we do. That's what John was doing in Revelation. That's what Paul said to do on all occasions, pray in the Spirit on all occasions. That's all that they're doing. And then you can just be like, do you just want to do that right now? And then most of the time, if they're not completely freaked out, they'd just be like, yeah, how would you do that? And you go, all right, well, let's just, close your biological eyes. Let's open the eyes of your heart. And let's just let your imagination, which is the eyes of your heart, see the room that we're in right now. And I'm telling y'all this so that you'd never wonder how to rope someone in to experiencing the heavens, right? Okay, once they're seeing the room, make it real easy. Why don't we just ask, Lord, where are you in this picture? And once they go, all right, first impressions, you know what I do. Keep them going with the first impressions. Keep them talking. Don't let them start to get into the mental traffic cop place where they're like, I can't say that. It's not spiritual enough. I've got to wait until something spiritual happens. No, your first impression. Where is he in the room? Well, I saw him sitting right in the chair. Okay, great. What's he look like? What's the expression on the Lord's face? And just get them talking. And if they struggle with it, ask him a ton of questions. Is the Lord taller than you? The same size or shorter? Well, almost everyone I have ever met says taller. No one sees the older brother shorter than them. I don't know if that's just the thing. How about, does he have hair? Almost everyone says yes. Then make them laugh. Is he wearing clothes or is he back in the garden for real? No, he's wearing clothes. Good. I didn't think he'd press that button either right now. Okay, well, what kind of clothes is he wearing? Just you can have fun with it. And you just get them going until they're interacting with the Lord. And I'm just giving you this because I think it will come in handy. What I want you to do is to become really bold about telling people how easy it is to talk with God just face to face in the garden. and don't hesitate to do it. If people struggle, and sometimes they do, this didn't happen this weekend, but I've had a number of weekend conferences where I'm talking to a group of people about going to the heavens, and I'm telling them how easy it is. And somewhere in the crowd is someone that is sure they are going to be the first person that this will not work for. They are sure that they're going to be the first one. And I'm telling you, 11 years, multiple continents, 6 or 7 different nationalities of people through translators, every denomination and walk of life imaginable, including not even a believer. I have never met anyone that can't use the eyes of their heart, not one person. But in a meeting, sometimes the person's like, it's going to be me. I'm going to be the first one. Just watch. It's just going to be darkness. That's how dark my soul is. Like Jesus can't even do this with me because I'm that broken, And I'm always like, I know how you feel. And there's, sometimes there's one in the crowd. And I encourage, like, are you thinking it's you? It's not you. I'm just going to go ahead and burst that bubble. You're not the first person. Okay, so there never will be one. So what I do when people are like that, and again, this is just a pro tip if you want to rope people in, is that typically what the problem is that they're afraid to use their own will. It's their own will that they're afraid of. Now, this may not be you, but we're not going to pick on you tonight or make you feel embarrassed, but you don't look like the kind of person that cares much about that anyway. So normally they're just afraid. They're afraid of themselves. And religion has done a pretty darn good job of making everybody terrified of themselves. Because we've all been in church for long enough to know we're the problem. It's us. It's our messed up minds. It's our messed up emotions. It's messed up everything. And so what we do is we count ourselves out of the equation really quickly. And we try to just go, okay, none of me, Lord, all of you. Just none of me, none of me. And sometimes I think God's like, actually, you would be helpful right now if I could actually get you in here instead of trying to give me every reason why you can't be a part of this equation. So I've said this like a lot. I hope that you've memorized it by now, but a really good way to encapsulate the religious spirit is when you're more afraid of getting it wrong than you're excited about getting it right. That's the religious spirit in a nutshell. When you're more afraid of getting it wrong than you're excited about getting it right. Because the religious spirit will always have you in a place where you are one step away from hell. It's like, don't screw up because God's mad and he's ready to get you. Like he's just looking for a reason to count you out. And he's been watching and he's like, man, I'm going to get them. I'm just going to wait for them to screw it up beyond repair, and that's when I'm going to strike. Like that's the religious spirit notion of God, To be absent of that makes you realize that God is way better than we've thought and rewards faith, curiosity, adventure, the occasional risk, all in efforts to find out how amazing are you, Lord. I'm very comfortable that I've never had a question that has offended the Lord. I've never had one, and I've asked some doozies in the heavens. I've asked some that I'm like, this could potentially make you mad, but I am genuinely curious here. I've never asked a question that God was like, well, that one was off limits. You're done. You get a year in timeout. No more heaven for you, Doesn't happen. I've never asked, I can't be offensive to the Lord about questions. It just doesn't happen. I'm convinced that there is so much goodness with God that he's just looking for people that seek after him. Now, again, I've mentioned before, I'm not tooting my own horn here. I enjoyed my years teaching high school and had a student come to me towards the end of their senior year when they were making a lot of decisions. And this young lady honestly was terrified of getting these big decisions post-high school. Where am I going to go? College? What am I going to do? And she was terrified. She's a believer. She wanted to know what God thought about the matter, but terrified of getting it wrong. Just terrified. The definition of the religious spirit. More afraid of getting it wrong than excited about getting it right. And I listened to her talk, and she's like, Mr. Carter, I just want to hear what God wants. And on and on and on. And so I can't say her name, obviously, but let's just say her name's Sarah. I said, Sarah, you got to realize that right now you're doing something that probably about 99% of the world isn't doing. You're waking up in the morning with a desire to know what's on God's heart. 99% of the world, even if they're Christians, not waking up doing that. Even if they're going to church, they're not waking up like, God, I want to know your destiny from my life. Good chunk of Christianity, it's not happening. Wherever they go to church, it's just not how they're waking up in the morning. This young lady was. I said, so you're going to tell me that here you are in the 1% of 7 billion people. The desire of your heart is to know. I'm saying this to you, and I didn't realize that that's who this was for. That your one desire when you wake up in the morning is to know what God wants. 1% of the world is doing that, and he's not going to lead you. Like, think that through. No one's doing it. You are. And you think that there's a chance you can screw this up? It's like at that point, it becomes God's job to talk in a way that you can hear. Not your job to figure out the mysteries of all of his ways. You following? Okay, good. Didn't even know why I was telling that story. You do? Okay. It's not like that's common. Speaking of roping people in, I think everybody should have to go to a rodeo once a year. I think it should just be a requirement. That should be a mandate. Of all the mandates that are getting thrown around these days, there should be a rodeo mandate. And I'm not even like Cowboy America, but I'm just saying it should be a national mandate. You cannot eat inside a restaurant unless you've been to a rodeo in the past year. Something like that. Yeah, are you in on this? No, not yet. Okay, but you will be. I know. It just should be. It just should be like a rite of passage. Rodeos are fascinating. They really are. It's like I never knew that world until my sister and her husband lived in San Antonio. And in visiting them, my sister was like, well, we're going to a rodeo. And I was like, do I get to wear a gun? What's the rules? I need to know what's going on. She was like, no, you don't get to wear a gun. Other people will, but not you. We go to the rodeo, and they have something for the kids called mutton busting. This is a riot to watch. My son Samuel was like, Dad, I want to do that. And I was like, bro, I just don't know enough about this to let you do it right now. And I actually have regret. I should have let him do it. They essentially put like a few, and I'm talking a few, not enough, a few pads on a kid, what looks like a hockey goalie mask, and they just plop him on a sheep and slap that sheep, and the sheep goes running, and that's mutton busting. And it's like rodeo for kids. Fascinating. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then I watched the rodeo, and I watched like these, men and women do things that I was like, I can't even believe people are still doing this stuff. I watched the one event that we're talking about as a metaphor where you're roping the calf. The calf comes flying out of the thing. Man on horse comes galloping out after it. Man lassos the calf, stops it. He wraps that rope around the knob of the saddle. Obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about. And he jumps off the horse, runs to the calf, lifts it off the ground, hog ties it, or whatever you call it, the legs, and then they time that. And that determines who wins. And I watched that event. I looked at my wife, and I said, number one, no one will ever invade America because we have these people. I was like, this all you have to do if you just want to stop any terrorism in America is just give videos of rodeos, to just send it out there to any terrorist organization. Like, listen, if you really tick us off, we will send these people to you. These are the toughest people in America. I watched that event happen. The guy that did the thing with the horse and the calf was older than me. And I looked at my wife and I said, any one of those actions, I'm in the ER. Any one. I was like, go from nothing to a gallop, trip to the ER. Jump off the horse in one motion, trip to the ER. Grab the calf, lift the calf off the ground onto its side, trip to the ER, potential hernia repair surgery. It's likely, it's probable hernia repair. Maybe the tying up, I get out of that okay, but the calf slide will kick me in the face. I was like, any one of these actions, I'm in the hospital. These are the toughest people in the world. Now, honestly, other than yes, you should go to a rodeo, it's a really fun experience. In general, the only reason I'm telling you that is just to make you laugh a little bit and to realize that that's kind of what it's like when you're roping people to go into the heavens. But you can do it. You can do it. Now, for the folks that are in the meeting that are like, I'm going to be the first one this doesn't work for, this is how I rope them, right? This is how I gallop out and get them. I trick them into not being afraid of their will anymore. And I enjoy it. I'm not lying. I think it's fun. I think it's really fun to trick people sometimes. So that's why I love being a high school teacher. Tricked my kids every week. They learned to not trust anything that I said, and I thought that was exactly the way it should be. And so I would just tell people, okay, you're having trouble. All right, you're going to paint me a picture of a peaceful place. You get to decide the picture. What are you going to paint? Well, a lot of people are like, ooh, I want to do a beach. Okay, good. Now pretend we have a canvas. Paint me the beach. What kind of beach are you going to paint me? Is it long and straight? Is it like a curved bay? And they tell me. Okay, what about the sand? What color do you want that to be? Is it white? Is it beige? Is it volcanic, dark Hawaiian sand? No, and they get to pick that, How about the water? Is it like Atlantic water, nice Caribbean water? What is it? They paint all of that in there. Great. It's your painting. You decide. Again, I'm just tricking them to use their will. Where do you want to be in the painting? I want to be standing on the beach. Great. Paint yourself in there. By the way, how old do you want to paint yourself in the picture? Maybe a little younger. Maybe I'm 12 in the picture. Okay, great. Why don't you paint 12-year-old you in the picture? Now, you get to decide. It's your painting. Where do you want to paint Jesus in? I want to paint him walking down the beach. Okay, paint him in. What's he going to look like? Is he taller than you, shorter than you, or about the same size? Is he bald? Does he have clothes on? What's the expression on his face? And they're just going to paint that in. Okay, good. It's your choice. It's your painting. You make it what you want it to be. Now, how about we put a little comic book text bubble coming out of Jesus' mouth? You get to decide, what are you going to put in that bubble? And then they'll say, well, that's kind of just what I want them to say? Yeah, it's your painting. Okay, I want him to say this. Great, now do a text bubble for you. What are you going to say in your painting? And they write something in. Now, you're a great painter. Now you're going to direct a movie. Take one. What happens in this scene if you're the director? Well, he walks towards me. Oh, good. What happens when he walks towards you? You're directing the movie. And then they get whatever happens. Now, in 5 minutes, the person that was like, I'm the only one this will never work for. In 5 minutes, they're having a conversation with the Lord using the eyes of their heart. And they're typically weeping. And it was because they couldn't give themselves permission to do it. And that was the only thing that was holding it back. If in your own journey, you find that you're plateaued out, you're not going as quick as you'd like to go, any of those things, I'm just going to offer to you that you have faculties as a human being that God expects you to use. Sooner or later, our intellect, will, and emotions are going to be as trustable as we only believe the Holy Spirit is today. Sooner or later, when we see him, we will be like him because we'll see him as he is. And he, because he was perfect, could trust all of those faculties. He could trust his body. He could trust his emotions, this field of energy around him that we call emotions. He could trust his intellect. It was all redeemed and powerful. It was all restored in him. If we're growing up into that image at some point in our journey of maturity, we have got to be able to at least consider that maybe in the 2,000 years we have had with the gospel, something has grown and matured in us in 2 millennia. Is that fair? Are we allowed to think that? I think we're not thinking about that enough. That was the beginning of the story. Where should we be today? But again, that religious spirit has done a fantastic job of telling you all of those faculties are everything that gets you in trouble. Your intellect, well, you overthink everything. Your emotions, you're too hot-headed. Your will, we all know how that's gone. And so we get stuck in, I'm going to just keep messing all of this stuff up. Instead of, why don't I choose to believe? Why don't I choose to believe that God isn't waiting on me to prove that I'm capable of all that stuff? He was just waiting on me to have faith in him, that he was capable of transforming those things. Not, I'm going to work all of it out and then approach the Lord. How about let God do the changing? And one way to do the changing is simply take a giant leap of faith and step. Have I ever shared with y'all some of my before heaven experiences, missionary journeys in Europe? Have I ever told you about some of that? Yeah, going to England, not knowing anybody, and the Lord just saying, go to the town spelled Derby. And there was a town called, they would say Derby, we would say Derby, but Derby, England, right in the middle of the country. And getting on a train with no money, just a one-way ticket and my passport in case someone tried to arrest me for sleeping on a bench at night. I didn't know what was going to happen. And with my one friend and the two of us on a one-way ticket in a foreign country to a place where we know no one. And that one leap of faith began an 8-year missionary experience in Europe that covered England, Italy, Germany, and Ireland. From that one step, that one leap of faith. So there's going to take some things like that. And if you don't think it's a leap of faith to pretend to be with Jesus in the garden, you're deluding yourself. It's a giant leap of faith to pretend to be with Jesus in the garden. And what you're going to find in those 6 months, what you called pretending is what they called being in the Spirit. What you called using the eyes of your imagination is what Paul called the eyes of your heart. When John said, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, he's using the exact same muscle that the person that's pretending to be in the heavens would use. We just live in a very, very different time than they lived in, with different definitions for words and a different culture that does not value unseen things at all. So it is a leap of faith. Now, along those lines, I want to tell you one far out story about heaven. And then I want to do some governmental stuff. Are we all okay with that? Are you okay if we don't have one central theme, but we can have two? I can have 2 themes? I can have 5? Wow, and I don't have to wrap it up with a bow or anything. We can just do what we feel like we're supposed to do. It's like we're not as afraid of getting it wrong as we are as excited about getting it right. That's good. I like that. Okay. I want to tell you a crazy far out story. And this is kind of a governmental thing anyway. As an example of using the eyes of your heart when you're just as sure as the world that you're pretending and making it up. Now, I cannot remember if I've told any of you about this before, but have I ever told you the experience about fighting with St. Brendan the Navigator from Irish history? Good. This is the right time to do it because this is what I felt coming when we were in worship earlier. I'm going to tell you this story, and you're going to be like, only 2 options here, folks. Christopher has a very overactive imagination, or some really cool heavenly things were happening. So I'm going to give you a story that will make you choose one of those options. And I prefer a choice over, wasn't that a nice story that man came and told us today? I will always prefer a choice. Another thing mission in Europe, in Italy, in fact, taught me is that when in doubt, press the flashing red button that says, don't press this button. When in doubt, do the thing that you know you are not supposed to do. This is how I live my life. I'm not suggesting you do it. Okay, so I can't not press a flashing red button when I see it. It's just only a matter of time, you know? I can tell myself I'm not going to do it, but I will eventually. In Italy, in Rome, of all places, man, I had a flashing red button. I was like, I'm going to press it. I'm totally going to press it. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to press the anti-Semitism button in Rome because I think it's going to be important to do, you know? And so I mean, seriously, I don't know how I convinced a group of Catholic people in a little suburb 30 minutes outside of Rome to give us the time of day, but they did. And so in one moment out in their wonderful villa that they lived at where this meeting was taking place, I was like, I want to talk to you all about the time of Jacob's trouble, prophesied, that wasn't fulfilled in the Holocaust, and about the anti-Semitism that has really, Italy has been known for, and that the Catholic Church has been known for. And so I totally gave them, which I'm not going to do tonight, but I totally gave them the expectation of the future of the Jewish people and our job in the last days. This is the whole Romans 11, chapter 11, verse 15, where Paul says, if their rejection meant the reconciliation of the world, in other words, salvation going to the Gentiles, what will their acceptance of the gospel be but life from the dead? In other words, if their rejection caused salvation to go to the world, what will a Jewish acceptance of the gospel mean except the resurrection of the dead? So in other words, and I didn't get this is Art Katz that was fond of saying, you Gentiles will sleep in the dirt until those Jews say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Because our futures and our destinies are linked together. So that was the flashing red button I decided to push in Rome. Now, when we left, we had a translator that helped us because I didn't speak good Italian, and I never did. I never learned enough to do it well, so we always had a translator. And he was a good friend of mine. And so when we were back home, I remember I was in the grocery store when he and I were talking on the phone. He said, well, they all had a meeting after you and my friend Jonathan, after the two of you left. And they came to the conclusion, either you're prophets or you're madmen. And I listened to that and I was like, I'll take that deal. I'd rather have a choice placed in front than, wasn't that a nice visit those two young men from America came to encourage us? I'd rather someone have to find out, was that prophetic or were they insane? You know? I mean, now maybe that's not everybody, but that's me. I'm like, I'll take that one. So here's a good story that maybe will make you have to decide. Is Christopher's imagination just running wild? Or is there a lot that's possible for us in the heavenly realms? I have become comfortable by this point in my journey. This is years ago. I think maybe 4 years ago. I'm just guessing. 4-ish years ago. Become pretty comfortable in my journey being in my home in the heavens. One day Jesus comes to me and says, I'm going to send you on a mission. I'm going to send you into a battle. And I said, okay. He said, I want you to gather together, a good team. Now, angels that I've come to know well. When I'm in the heavens, it's a lot like Narnia. So it's not, there's animals that are talking. There's creatures that are walking around that are some kind of like mythological thing. I mean, like all of that's there, So I get a team together, and I brought some angels that would be good in a fight. I brought the ones that I was like, I've never seen these guys back down from anything. Now, one of those angels was, when I first saw him, I wasn't sure he was on my side. That's kind of how scary he looked. Do you know most of the time when people see angels, they say something to the humans that, in our modern tongue might sound like, don't pee your pants. Like that's normally what they say. Hey, you don't need to change your pants. It's okay. I'm here for you, Now, in the Bible, it comes out with much more dignity. Don't be afraid. I have been sent from the Lord, Really, in the real version, it was, don't pee your pants. Just wait. So, the first time I saw this particular angel, I walk up to him and he's covered in this dark robe with this dark cowl. Like he's like in the Star Wars movies, like he's on the wrong side of the Jedi or whatever. He's the Darth whoever, got this dark cowl. And I walk up to him and all I can see is this almost translucent, almost clearish white skin. And I'm like, that almost looks ghastly, and my first thought was, Jesus, where are you? Where are you in this picture? Where are you in this picture? Red alert, red alert, red alert, Listen, and this is a good point too. When you're going into the heavens, I don't care how long you've been doing it, you're going to find some dark things from time to time. Pro tip, don't freak out. It's there because something's supposed to happen. Just don't do it on your own. Just go, Jesus, where are you in the picture? There he is. then go, Lord, do you see the crazy monster? And if he goes, yes, I do, then go, what are you going to do about it? Pass the buck. And if he says, no, I don't see the crazy monster, then you say, what did I eat that's making this happen? What kind of crazy cheese went into this experience, you know? Keep it yes or no. That's what I like to do in moments like that. So I walk up to him and I go, Lord, where are you? And Jesus gets us closer to the thing that I'm like, I'm pretty sure he came from hell. I'm not sure what this is. And then as I get closer to him, I can see that inside that dark robe is this burning ember of a heart. And Jesus says, this spiritual being personifies love and fire. So he's the virtue love mixed with the element fire. And then I look under that cowl and he starts to pull it back and his hair is plasma, fire. It's just all like, you know, like almost the coral colors that you would see in a plasma sculpture into the violets. Like that's his hair. It's like living plasma. And I look at the robe and he's wrapped in the cosmos. Like he's wrapped with stars and nebula and galaxies. And that skin that I was afraid of, it was like translucent alabaster. I was like, okay, I had this guy wrong. But that presence was giant and powerful. He's the virtue love, and I've heard in heaven a number of times virtues never lose a fight. The spiritual beings that personify them and the way that virtues play out in life, virtues never lose a fight. And he's also the element fire. Okay, I took him. The other angel I took with me was like a lion that would walk upright like a human. And I knew his name is Aberynthicus. And you're like, that's a fun imaginative name. And you know what it translates as? Lord of the crossing over. Aberynthicus, yeah. Now, two great spiritual beings. I made sure they were probably like two of about 8. The Lord, and I've never told you this story.
You said you've gone on a battle through your ship.
Yeah, but I've never done this. Okay. He throws us in, through this doorway into the battle he said we were going into. And I immediately thought, I'm in over my head. Just using the eyes of my heart. I'm pretending to be there. And all I see as far as to the horizon is this undiscernible melee of armies clashing together. It's not like there's machine guns and tanks. These are swords and spears and horses and craziness and armor. And it's just all I can see. I can't even see whose side is who. And I got scared. And I immediately cried out to the Holy Spirit, who I recognize as the mother. And I just went, oh, what have we done? And I felt the Holy Spirit's voice say, son, this is just a skirmish. And I went, what's the war look like if this is just the skirmish? This is like millions, right? Now, I'm just stuck in the middle like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to wait for something to happen. There's a man, and I know he's a human. I know he's not an angel. I don't know how to tell you. You just know that stuff, but you just do. This man walks up to me. He's very kind of like, he's got the Asian samurai vibe. He's got a top knot ponytail. And I was like, he looks like he knows what he's doing. He's dressed for the occasion, at least. And he comes over, clearly sees me that doesn't know what he's doing. And he's like, follow me, puts us on horses, rides us out of the skirmish over some green hills, and I come into the king's camp, which is just pavilions and banners and flags and beautiful colors and green grass. And they take me down these wide streets in between the pavilions to where there's like a little tent for me and my crew. Now, all I'm told is, this is your spot. We'll come and get you when it's time. So when I'm back in the Spirit, the day after that, and the day after that, in my own time in the heavens, I'm up there, and those 2 angels that I brought on purpose take me into like an arena, not unlike a rodeo arena, big dirt floor. And for 2 days, those 2 spiritual beings beat the crap out of me all around that arena. I mean, they whipped me from one side to the other as they were teaching me how to fight. And it's not like there was not a lot of respect here. I mean, like they gave me to fight with a mace, which is like a glorified baseball bat. Do you realize how much skill it doesn't take to wield a glorified baseball bat in a battle? It's just swing it. There's nothing else that you can do. No skill at all. There's like, we've got 2 days. What are we going to give him? Give him the club. He can't mess that up. And so for 2 days, they're strapping armor on me and they whipped me from one side of that arena to the other until I learned how to move differently. Because I'm thinking the whole time, move like I move here. I'm not thinking, this is like the immortal me. I'm future seeing my resurrection life. There's still rules, but the rules are better than the rules that I have here. And I learned how to move into the point where I could kind of give it as good as I was taking it. The next day, I'm taken to another tent, and there's about 30 or 40 humans. At the head of this meeting is someone that you know things by the Spirit, is the Irish apostle from about 700-ish, 800-ish AD. I think that's his time frame. Brendan the Navigator. He's one of the 12 Irish apostles. Brendan the Navigator, if you don't know his story, believed it was possible to find the gate to the garden. And so he got 12 of his disciples. They built one of their Irish carracks, like a long boat with the one sail. It was like a Viking boat almost before those were a thing, made of hide. And they set sail to find the gate to the garden. They did not come back for 7 years. The seventh year is when they found the way in. Brendan came back from the journey, founded a monastery, where then people came from the surrounding countryside to participate in those experiences that they had discovered. This was pretty normal stuff for early Celtic Christianity. So Brendan the Navigator is leading the meeting. Are you guys still with me on this story? Okay. I'm there as like the one that doesn't know what he's doing. So my only job in that meeting was, don't look like an idiot. That's the only thing I was thinking. Just don't let them know how much you do not understand what's happening. I just observed. He's leading the meeting. He's got this big map that's almost like holographic. I mean, it was like 10 feet by 8 feet on this table. And on that map, he's got diagrammed everything that's going on. He's got that skirmish that I saw. And if you were looking at it, skirmish here, mountain range here, king's camp over here, right here, giant ring of fire, with these almost like power stations around it. And coming up out of that ring of fire was this like goat-headed Baphomet-like creature with the horns and multiple arms that was either coming up or going down, but my money was on being conjured up out of this ring of fire. That's the map. Brendan, as the commander, here is like, what do we want to do? And he's ready for people just to start talking. And I'm like, okay, good. So long as I just kind of hide in the back, no one will call on me, And they start, to a man, everyone's like, you know what? We're not going to stop them from conjuring this thing up. Like, why would we want to? Let's let them conjure it up, then we'll deal with it. But let's just go mess with them. Let's just go lower their morale. Let's do that. Let's just make it really difficult and just frustrate the tar out of the other enemy's camp with that ring of fire. So they're all agreeing, let's just go out and raid one of those little power towers around that ring of fire. Brendan's still asking for ideas from the crowd. And because, again, flashing red button, I was like, crud. So I was like, okay, clearly there are people here from times that I was not alive. So circa 2017, this is what this map looks like to me. Alps, Large Hadron Collider, CERN, the big particle accelerator ring on the border of Switzerland and France, right where the Alps are. I said, now, circa 2017, that's what it looks like. And if you've ever seen the statue in front of CERN, it's like the Indian multi-armed whatever god of destruction and death, which is an odd choice for scientists, but anyway. So that's there. And I said, that's what I think's going on. And it's a giant... Y'all want to have a nerd moment? Sure. You sure? Yes. Okay, just talking to y'all. In the back, they're like, yeah, not really. Okay, I'm just kidding. No. Nerd moment. Thanks, Josh. Nerd moment. If you run a current around a ring, you induce a field, a magnetic field. And the way that you do this in physics, the real simple way, stick your thumb in the direction of the current going around the ring, your fingers will wrap the way that the field is going. Okay, so if the current goes this way, the field is coming around that ring like this. If the current goes this way, the field is going like that. So whatever direction they're moving the current around that ring, and they're moving some current, holy monkeys, if you just do the math on that one, they're generating an enormous field. Now, in the spirit, I'm going to go with conjuring something up. So, anyway, I'm like, that's what it looks like to me. No one was like, oh, thanks for that. They were like, okay, moving on. Like it's not like they acknowledged me and gave me a ribbon. I mean, that's not what happened. So they've planned this raid for the night because that seems like what we would do. Like, let's go out at night and mess with them. Before we go out, now I know this is my life, okay? Here's my natural mortal life. I know we're doing this for real, okay? I wait until everyone in my house is asleep that night because it's a night raid. I let them go to bed. And while everyone in my house is asleep, I go into the living room and go up into the heavens for our night raid on that tower. Before we go out, those two angels that were teaching me how to fight start strapping armor on me. At which point I thought, why do I need this? We're in the spirit world. I can't die, right? Right? What are you not telling me? Why do we need the armor again? And they're putting this armor that was black as night on me, kind of like Love and Fire's cloak. And just like his cloak, I looked at that black armor and there were stars and nebula and galaxies. Like I was being armored in the cosmos itself. And I was like, okay, I can get behind this now. We ride out. There's like 30 or 40 of us. We ride out to one of those little power stations around the big ring of fire. And it's like we had kicked a hornet's nest. You just got there and then boom, all of these like crazy Lord of the Rings, like orc goblin creatures are flying everywhere. There are all kinds of monstrous things. And this team of 30 or 40 people, Brendan, the navigator, laughed his way into the battle. He was so cavalier. He's riding into it like guffawing, just ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, ha, why is he excited? Like, this is my first time, I mean, it is, the fog of war was a real thing. It was just a melee of just clanging everything. I didn't know half the time where I was. I've got my glorified baseball bat, though. Had that, just swinging away, having a great time. It was actually really exhilarating. Until I face off with this creature that was some kind of spider/octopus that was 3 times my size and every leg ended in something sharp. And it's going every which way, and I'm getting hit by it. I can feel the hits even in my natural body. And at one point, I'm hiding underneath the thing because it seemed the only way to get away from the sharp stuff. And then in a moment of total, people think that bravery is like a real thing. I just think it's a complete lack of foresight. I really do. I think bravery is often mistaken as a complete lack of foresight. Yeah, you think so? It's also why men, on average, have a shorter lifespan than women. It's a complete lack of foresight. Are we cliff diving today? Okay, I'll do it. It's that mentality. With that mentality, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I climbed up this thing and I'm on its back. It's still trying to get me. And without knowing what I'm doing, I'm raising that club, that mace above my head, and I can feel gathering energy. And I cracked that thing down on its back and went right through it to the ground, covered in goo. It was awesome. And in my mortal body, sitting in my living room while everyone else is asleep, I smelled ozone, like electricity. So much so that I stopped what I was doing in the spirit and went in the kitchen to see if the toaster was on fire. And I realized that gathering of power and that crack, that translated into my mortal life. And I was like, this barrier is wafer thin. Anyway, Brendan calls it, okay, we remember the goal, mess with morale. Just make them have a terrible night. He calls it, let's go sound it's not a retreat, it's just we're done. Mission accomplished, and we're riding back, and Brendan the navigator is laughing the entire way home. And by this point, so am I. And so I find Brendan before we're done, and I said, that was, without a doubt, one of the coolest things I have ever done in the heavens, ever. can we go again tomorrow night? And he said, yes, just me, you, and the team that you brought. I said, I'm in. Next night, everybody's asleep. I'm in the living room, going into the heavens. I find Brendan the navigator in the camp. We ride out on horses over those hills, mountains, Ring of Fire, remember all that? We ride up to where we can see the mountain range. He goes, where do you want to go and pick a fight tonight? And I said, I can see a tunnel in that mountain range, and I can look in there and see the orangey kind of glow as it goes in there. And I said, I want to go fight there. That's a terrible idea. Don't go fight in a tunnel. There's like one way out. It's a dumb plan. This is why no one asks me for my strategies. They're like, hey, new guy, what do you think we should do? Like, that's not what happened, you know? But it's Brendan. So he was like, let's go. We'll go into that tunnel and kick the hornet's nest again. So we ride into there. As soon as we're in and our presence is felt, here come all the creepy, crawly things, and they're all over. This time it looked like human-like figures. And they were pasty white, and all they were wearing was like pasty white underwear. I know, bad image, but I'm giving it to you straight. And they're crawling on walls and upside down. They're coming out like ants out of an anthill, and I've got my glorified baseball bat, and I'm just swinging away, and things are flying every which direction. And then something starts to come out of that cave that is a little bigger and is this kind of like horned, cloven foot kind of fallen spiritual being, like a Pan, if you've ever studied mythology, from where we get our word panic, you know? It's like there's a sound that came from Pan that caused people to lose their minds. If you're a little curious about some of the fallen spiritual beings that are very active today, Pan is one of them. So anyway, a Pan-like fallen angel starts to come out of the cave. Brendan calls it. Hey, I think we've done a good job. We messed with them again. We're good to go. So off we go. We're laughing our whole way home. That's that evening. I wake up the next morning, and as you do, you check your mails, you check your messages, get on your Facebook Messenger, who sent me something. And no one was really reading my books, 4 or 5 years ago, so it was just like, hey, is anybody talking about anything here? So it's like you check to see, is anybody emailing anything? And on Facebook, someone has posted a video of something that happened the previous day. They built a tunnel from Switzerland to France through the Alps. It took 17 years to build. I was doing this, this wasn't 2000, maybe it was 2015. Anyway. Took 17 years to build. It's the longest tunnel and the most expensive one mankind has ever built through the Alps. And they had a big ceremony with all of the European leaders when they opened it up and cut the tape for the tunnel to be opened. And I'm watching the ceremony. It's a very demonic thing. It's super witchcrafty. At one point, these dancers, a troupe of dancers, come out, and they're covered in pasty white paint, and they're only wearing their pasty white underwear, and my jaw went. And then after them, on like a parade float, comes a depiction of Pan. And I thought I was just pretending to be there. I was just making it up. But I was there in the spirit when that event happened. And what was the effect of kicking the hornet's nest that day? I have no idea. Maybe I'll know some point, but I've got ideas that I hope are true. I hope that what happened that day is, do you know how sometimes we have meetings and everything screws up? The Wi-Fi goes off, the microphones don't work, the live feed goes in and out. What I hope happened is before that whole, parade and everything took place, it all went haywire, and they have to put up with the same stuff that we do. And I was like, take that, demonic parade in France or Switzerland or wherever it was. I hope you enjoyed that scramble to get it all right before your whole thing took place. And I wonder if what they do when that happened is they're like, hey, this is spiritual warfare. This is spiritual warfare right now. They're like some Christians that are they're having a meeting and they're like praying against it. And I hope that's what happened. Just, totally out of spite. Just like, take that. You deserve to experience it, Now listen, I don't think Jesus would say it quite like that. So you take it with a grain of salt. One man's experience 3 nights in a row of some really fun, far out, imaginative, adventuresome things. And it just raises the question, or it should raise the question. Either I have a really overactive imagination, which I don't think my life would really play that out anyway, but I don't expect you to know that. Or there's a whole lot that we're capable of doing in the heavens. Josh, how much time do I have back there? What are we looking at?
You are at 6:25.
What time do y'all normally go to?
10.
No, you don't go to. It's neither midnight or 10. We all know that. What time was it normally? You normally 6:30 is what y'all normally do?
We really don't.
Okay, let me do this. That was theme number 1. Let me just go a little bit longer and then let's have a heaven excursion together. Can we do that? Okay, will you play when we do it? Can you give us some nice little ethereal stuff in the background? Sure you can. Theme number 1. You've been given the tool. I just want to encourage you to use it, and I want to encourage you to become bold about getting other people to do it too. Don't lay off telling people the gift that we've been given, that we were always had, but we just lost the thread of the story. And God's so gracious, he gave it back to us here in the last days of this age that's coming to a close. Theme number 2. The last time that I was with you, we took a whole day and we talked about the Maseroth, right? Really dove in to what that was. Now, we've left it, but we just left the month where the sun, the greatest light in the sky, was in the constellation Cancer, which is a symbol of humility and service. Now, I'm going to offer just a guess that between the end of July to the end of, 17th, 18th of July to the 17th, 18th-ish of August, I'm willing to bet a lot of you had a chance to go low, to humble yourself, and to give power away. I'm going to just guess that you felt Cancer pretty well. I'm also going to suggest to you that the effects of the Maseroth are going to become stronger in the months and days and years ahead. You're going to feel it more than you used to. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're like, yep, last month I had a lot of opportunities to go low, to become a servant, to make it not about me, to give power away instead of try to consolidate it in myself. Now that was good. I think that's a good time to be there. I had that too. I tell you the way I watched it play out beautifully is that I did a conference in Illinois right in the middle of Cancer, right at the turn of the month from July to August. And instead of doing the normal stuff, I thought, let's really make the theme training the people that are there to give this away. Let's empower them to give this stuff to as many people as they can. Instead of what can we learn, what new stuff can we take, let's talk about giving stuff away, becoming so secure. And this is what really encompasses Cancer as a sign of the Maseroth, these 12 constellations. It's that you become so secure. This is what humility really is. You become so secure that you are full to the brim of God's power, that it does not make you insecure to give it all away. That's really what it is. It's not like you're like on purpose becoming a doormat or just taking a bunch of junk from people. That's not what it is. It's just, I know I've been filled up past my capacity to contain it. Therefore, I'm going to celebrate pouring it out. I'm going to give power away with no fear at all of running out. You see what I'm saying? That's the Cancer. Now the Leo is what we just moved into. Now around the 18th of August, and what day are we here? 2022. Now I would say we're in it. You're in Leo now. I don't even know if the door to Cancer is still open. I think it probably takes a week to transition. It's just a hunch. Now you're in Leo. For the next month, from the end of August, say 18th-ish of August to the 18th of September, the sun is in the sign that celebrates kingship and government, decree and declaration. Now you're starting to wake up, aren't you? Yeah, because now you know what you want to do tonight. You want to start to step into the kingship part of it, which does not mean forget about Cancer. Okay, it does. Joshua's like, so what you're telling me is I've got a pass to pretty much say whatever I want to say right now. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can't forget that, right? I mean, it's the reason why Cancer comes before Leo, and it does happen every single day. The constellation Cancer, which is the only two visible stars, it's a humble constellation. It looks like a blank space between Gemini and Leo. The only two visible stars are the northern donkey and the southern donkey. We covered this when was that? May 22nd. That was May 22nd. The donkey, service, humility. Every single day, the donkey comes up in the east, followed by the king, the lion. Just like when he rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. It always happens that the king comes in riding on a donkey. So you can't express Leo without Cancer, because Leo is sitting on top of the being low and giving power away. But then the king is realized once the king does that. Once the king can master his own insecurity that I'm going to run out of power if I keep giving it away. I need to start consolidating it before I run out. That's the human condition right now. You're just watching everybody try to consolidate power. Watch everybody in the next panic. They will try to consolidate toilet paper. You know? It's not about giving it away. It's about how can I get it? We're consolidating it because what happens, you're insecure that there's not going to be enough, that you won't get it. Well, Cancer is the opposite of that. And the king comes in, if it's true kingship, riding on the security that I've been given so much power, I can't not give it away. I have to begin pouring this power out. And watch Jesus' ministry. He can't pour it out fast enough. He's like, give me 12, not enough. Give me 70, not enough. I'll take a couple thousand. And he just keeps putting power out into the people. Kingship comes in now, and it's a celebration, just like we talked about when we covered it in May. What the sun is in, it's celebrating a part of God's character, purpose, and plan. So what are we going to celebrate for the next month? How about stepping into true human kingship? How about stepping into a declaration about what we want to, not just what we want to see, but what we feel like the kingdom is saying, coming into alignment with that, being another voice that's saying, this is what you want to do, Lord. This is what we're starting to declare. Y'all, I mean, I know you didn't mean 10 or 12, but let me just tell you one more story of something that happened to me that will go back to theme number 1 a little bit. The first time I experienced participating with the constellation Leo, I was completely oblivious to it. I was in Washington, D.C., doing some pre-marriage counseling for some folks. And while I was there, the angels started to meet me in my own personal time. And they said, hey, we know you're doing this counseling for your friends before they get married, but you have an assignment in D.C. And I was like, great, what is it? They said, you're going to go meet a fallen principality at the Lincoln Memorial. And you're going to give that fallen prince the word of the Lord. I was like, all right, hope y'all are involved because I'm sure to screw this up if you're not. And they said, no problem. You're just going to go. Just let your obedience be your faith. That's all you need to do. You're going to walk from the Washington Monument around that reflecting pool to the Lincoln Memorial. Don't worry about it. You'll meet them there. You give them the word, job done. You can go to the museums, which I love to do. And I was like, great, I wanted to see the whole part of the Smithsonian that has all the gemstones. That was like on my list. I was like, I'm going to do that afterwards. So they say do it on a Wednesday. I just was taking the words. I was like, let's do it. Now this was, I don't know how long ago this was, but it was years. I mean, it's probably about 8-ish years ago. And so I do the walk. I walk from the Washington Monument past the reflecting pool. As I'm walking towards the Lincoln Memorial, a few things are hitting me. Number one, whoever designed this designed it to look like God's throne. There's a crystal clear pool of water. And on the other side are steps leading up to a very paternal presence seated on a throne. It's designed to mimic God's throne. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's probably not good, but that's a discussion for another day. So I'm walking there, and I'm like, oh, nice move, architect. I get it, you know? And as I'm walking closer to the Lincoln Memorial, an angel, and I'm pretending to be there. I'm there in my mortal body, but I'm doing this through the eyes of my heart, lest people think I'm totally crazy. And this angel comes to greet me, and he's like a historian. He says, I'm going to tell you the history of this thing that you're going to go meet. He says his name is Brevlon. Now, I was like, I kind of do some language stuff. Etymologies, I'm into that nerd moment. I was like, brevity, short. Lon is a Gaelic suffix that often means strength. So in other words, strength for a short time. Now, it's probably not his given name. It's probably the one he got when he fell. That has to tick you off. If heaven knows you as strength for a short time, man, you're going to be mad. So anyway, he says, listen, he was the personification of peace. He was the virtue peace. He fell and became the vice, which was war and strife and conflict. Now that's what he's personifying. I said, let's go get him. So here we are. We walk to the Lincoln Memorial. I'm 100 yards away. I see him with the eyes of my heart come out from the Lincoln Memorial, and he stands between the columns. He's as tall as the columns. His skin looked like shiny, bronzy skin, and he had these giant white wings that stretched out the width of the entire memorial. And I said to the angels that were with me, he doesn't look fallen. What's the problem? And they said, this is the way that he appears to everybody that comes to worship at this altar. He's appearing to them like he is still the angel of peace. Now, watch what happened there. Washington Monument to Lincoln Memorial, these two kind of foundational presidents that brought peace. This one resolved this war. This one resolved this war. And that's where he's encamped himself. Okay? He's pretending to be a benevolent force for good. So I'm getting closer. As I get closer to him, he shrinks himself down. He does get dark and staticky. That's how I would describe them. Just dark and staticky. He got all crusty as I got closer. The facade kind of went down. And as soon as I get close to him, he's ready to pick a fight. He's like, Christopher, you do not have the authority to remove me from my place. I am here, and this is my spot. You do not have the power to dispose me. And I was like, he's just picking a fight. I'm not even saying that, you know? So I'm there with my posse of angels, the one that's really good at declaration, who incidentally, and again, this was lost on me at the time, his name was Leonisis, that angel. He said, Christopher, don't even talk to him. Find a corner, get out your little notepad, you'll write the word, and I'll tell him what you write. You don't even have to address him. In other words, you do your job. The angels will deal with the fallen angels. Wow. I'm in. Found a corner of the Lincoln Memorial, wrote a letter, Dear Brevlon, comma. And all I did was, it wasn't about man of faith and power for the hour. I'm going to deliver this guy and cast him away into some other place. It wasn't like that at all. It was just about turning the page of the story. It wasn't I've been fire baptized. I'm about to cast this thing into the pit. I don't care how big he is. Jesus is with me. And Josh was like, that's what I would have done. No, it was just it was the whole counsel of God. My only job is to read this fallen spirit the next paragraph of his story. Didn't matter what it was. That's all I was supposed to do. And so I said, Dear Brevlon, comma, you have been masquerading as a benevolent ruler that's for peace. But what you really are is the personification of war and strife and conflict. After I leave here today, your facade is going to come down. Whether or not men still come here to worship at your altar, they are at least going to know what they're worshiping. You will not be able to say anymore that you're for peace. They'll know that you are a tyrant and a despot, a total totalitarian ruler. You're not what you appear to be. Whether or not they still worship at your altar, they're going to know who they're worshiping. Gave the note to Leonisis. He reads it to him. I was like, are we good? He's like, yeah, go to the museums, have a great time. I was like, I'm out, that's it. Nothing's coming. I'm out of here. See you later. And off I went to the museums. I love that kind of work that doesn't take a whole lot of pressure. I like no pressure environments. Now, it occurred to me later that I made a decree, a declaration, smack dab in the middle when the sun was in the constellation Leo. And I believe that God had that timed perfectly because he's using everything to accomplish his purpose. The entire creation, the whole cosmos, the rhythms of the sun and the moon and the stars, all flowing and attending into us so that in a moment of declaration, it comes out with the force that God wants it to have. Do you know what I think happened that day? Because this was 8-ish years ago. I think the facade that came down is that, and it's okay if this doesn't play with the whole crowd. This is one man's opinion. You're allowed to take what I say with a giant grain of salt. I've never been like, my way is the high, or it's the only way. It's my way or the highway. Just, if nothing else, just ponder this for 30 seconds after we're done. You owe it to yourself. That's it. But what I think happened that day is that the office that's represented by those two memorials is the office of the executive leader of our country, the president. And I think what was happening is the facade was coming down. That no matter what anyone thinks, the people that are holding this office are becoming more despotic year after year, regardless of who's in it. The office itself keeps consolidating power and becoming more of a total ruler. And I think that facade came down and the word was clear. Whether or not men still come to worship at this altar, they're going to at least know what altar they're worshiping at. Now, maybe someday someone else will go to the Lincoln Memorial and the next chapter of the story is, and now you do get cast to the pit. I don't know what will happen. That's not, I just did the one job. That's all I did. I'm not saying it, and that's the prophecy forever. That was just the one job. That's all I did. I think we should take a moment tonight and find out what heaven wants to declare.